This neighbor pointed their sump pump pipe straight into our client's yard. So here's what we did for this client. We raked back all of the river rock and dug a 15-inch deep hole, and then lined it with French drain fabric. Then we installed 2 perforated pipes, or pipes with tiny holes in them that connected to a single discharge line. These pipes will collect the water in the area. Then we backfilled the hole with 1-inch clean rock for drainage, and the technical term for this is an open French drain, which basically means we didn't cover it completely with fabric or dirt. And since this area of the yard was already covered with decorative river rock, we just took those rocks and put them back on top, making it near invisible. But now, when the neighbor's sump pump turns on, it'll soak through the drainage rock, go into the perforated pipe, and leak down into our designated discharge area. What you just saw was a short that went viral on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, and I thought it'd be useful to give some more context to the problem and explain the full solution because a lot of people saw that video and asked a bunch of really good questions. So that little open French drain has to drain somewhere, right? Well, in this case, we actually drained it into an outdoor sump pump pit. This job site had a lot of landscaping surrounding our work, so we had to be careful and it took a lot of extra time. But one of the things we found was an old French drain, which unfortunately was built with woven fabric. However, in the end, we tied it into our system anyways since we cut it. This trench looks nice, but something we had to do to lay a proper trench towards the sump pump was to cut some roots, and we've been using this new saw and blade to save time, and it's been working really well. Anyways, after that was plumbed, we backfilled that trench and started on the outdoor sump pump chamber. There's a ton of pipes we're going to be tying into this chamber, and I'll explain all of those in a minute, but you're probably wondering about the chamber itself. Here's how we build it. We start with a 15-inch pipe and cut it to length that we need to create the right size chamber. Then we take a 15-inch T and use a coupler to connect them using zip ties and also some screws. Now, what you'll see in this video is a lid that we screw on the ends, but we've actually switched to actual end caps or split couplers that fit this pipe. They're more affordable and they're easier to put on. Something you may notice if you look closely is that we drilled 6 3/8-inch holes all the way down the ribs around this thing so that it can absorb groundwater and also drain out when not in use so that we can avoid bugs or weird smells. Anyways, once the chamber is assembled, before installing it, we pour gravel into the chamber pit for 2 reasons. First, this allows us to properly level the chamber so that the water won't favor one side. Secondly, this allows us to raise the chamber to the level that we want it to so that it's not too low in the ground and that the discharge pipes can be plumbed in. A quick note here, we buried one side that didn't need any connections with gravel, but this wasn't the best decision because it was more difficult to plumb on the other side without being able to move and maneuver the chamber around. This part of the installation was probably the messiest because there was a lot of extra pipe laying around everywhere. We drilled holes into the basins for the pipes, we used a 5-inch hole saw for the 4-inch pipe and a 7-inch hole saw for the 6-inch pipe. And we placed them and oriented them in a way so that they would drain into the chamber from the top and space them out well enough so that the chamber would retain its strength since it'll be buried. So here the first blue pipe that you see is coming from 2 gutter downspouts. The large 6-inch black pipe was already existing and we're not actually completely sure where it comes from. But being 6-inch, it's probably a collection of catch basins on the other side of the yard or the French drain that we saw earlier, or both. And finally, that blue pipe coming out the top is what goes to the open French drain that we installed in the beginning of the video. Here's a look at the inside of the chamber. It's kind of neat. It's important to note that all the pipes come in from the top so that the water can be held in the system and then pumped out with the sump pump. And if you don't know what a sump pump is, it's literally a pump that takes water and pumps it out forcefully. And we chose a 3/4 horsepower option and we placed it right in the middle of the chamber for easy access if it ever needs to be replaced. In the T of the chamber, we also drilled 2 holes, a 2-inch hole for a discharge line and a 5-inch hole for electrical wiring. The plumbing inside the chamber is pretty simple. We used a union so that the sump pump could be replaced pretty easily without cutting pipe if it needs to be in the future. We cut some pipe to length and connected a coupler to it, and then the other side of this coupler will directly connect to a flexible 1.5-inch discharge line. But first, we need to get to the rest of the plumbing. We hand tighten a 1.5-inch male thread to PVC adapter to the sump pump itself, and once that's installed, we take another piece of pipe and cut it to length. So far, all of these pieces are pressure rated and have been glued. After that, this is where we install the union piece, so we actually take the union apart and glue one end to the sump pump piece and the other end to the discharge piece. We highly recommend applying lubricant to the O-ring before hand tightening. Finally, we cut the flexible discharge line to length and glue it to our coupler, and there you have it. The plumbing part of the sump pump is all finished. Next is wiring. We use a 4-inch PVC pipe to protect and route the sump pump power cord and the heater power cord. A grommet is created by taking a Fernco cap and cutting a plus in it, and then tightening it to the PVC. Something that I didn't get great footage of, but that we did do was also install pond heaters in these so that they don't freeze in the winter. Once the plumbing and wiring are done, we backfill the chamber trench. This is done slowly to avoid damaging the pipes and to keep the chamber level. When the chamber is filled to about 6 inches below grade with gravel, we then use fabric to cover the top of the gravel, essentially burrito wrapping the entire chamber. The purpose of this fabric is so that dirt doesn't enter the gravel area because the air gaps in the gravel help the water flow into the chamber faster, and our system simply won't be as efficient as it could if the gravel is clogged. This is also why I said the woven fabric the previous landscapers used earlier on in this video was bad, because woven fabric does not drain well. It's great for some applications, but not for drainage. The lid of this chamber is going to be a grate so that surface water going down the swale can actually enter this as well. After that, our next step is to backfill the rest with soil and compact. This is more of an art, and once our artists are done with the backfill process, we seed and straw the area so that our client will never have to deal with a muddy mess of a backyard again when the grass eventually grows back. Oh, and that sump pump discharge line, about 7 to 12 inches underground and about 100 feet away from the initial sump area. The water is designed to actually enter the stormwater curb drain, but since we couldn't legally cut the concrete and tie straight into that, we made our pipe simply discharge right before it. And since this pipe will have some force to it, we didn't hook it up to a pop-up emitter. Instead, we're going to install a small dry creek bed, or in other words, place decorative stone around this to hide the pipe and make it look better. And, this is really important, to prevent it from eroding the soil. Before we leave a site, we always do a walkthrough to check for any tools that we may have missed or to put back any missing landscaping that we disturbed to install our solution. For this client, we actually installed another sump pump chamber on the other side of their yard, but that one was a little bit more complex, involving a French drain system that we installed. So if you want to see that video, click the subscribe button, or if you have any questions about this outdoor sump pump project, drop a comment below and we'd be happy to answer. One last thing, the client actually put up a piece of plywood to block the sump pump water, and then the neighbor literally plumbed the sump pump discharge up like 4 feet to go over the plywood. The city was no help to our client, so that's why we were called in for another solution. Plus, the client did have other drainage needs. It's really unfortunate and sad for the client to have neighbors like that, honestly. Wrapping this video up, thank you so much for watching. We hope you learned something, and we also really hope to see you in our next video.